Hello, hello. This is Peter Nelson with Nelson Insurance Advisors, and we have the man, the myth, the legend, Logan Hertz for Hazeltine LLC. How you doing, Logan?
Hey, Peter, thanks for having me again. Great to be here, as always.
Absolutely. So I believe we're continuing on this financial malpractice part three, and I'm looking forward to this. We're gonna make this one a little bit shorter today, about 20, 25 minutes or so. But so
Don't make
what are
any
we getting
promises.
into today, Logan?
Yeah, so this is part three of an ongoing series because there's so much in this to dissect. But just to recap, um, the financial advisor is recommending this 75-year-old basically keep all of his money in the market. He's dead set opposed to any other financial vehicle that might remove risk from the equation. And he's doing what a lot of people in his shoes do, which is pretend to be an expert in infinite banking when he's not. Confusing, again, the number one thing is he's confusing the infinite banking concept with the vehicle that we're using, which is cash value life insurance. And then he gets lost in the mechanics of what cash value life insurance is, missing the point. But to your point, Peter, it really is instructive because it shows how unbelievably ignorant a lot of people are, including financial advisors with a lot of experience as to how cash value life insurance really works. So I just want people to keep this in mind when people start bringing up their credentials and I'm a fiduciary and I'm securities licensed and I'm this and that, and they act like they know everything. And then they just make the most basic misconceptions about, in this example, cash value life insurance. So while always I'm rejecting his premise because he's missing the point, still, even if I accept his premises, he says so many things that are just totally bizarre and wrong when it comes to cash value life insurance.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned something very interesting. I'll have a little fun with me for a second.
Okay.
Guess who's now a fiduciary?
Yeah, yeah.
So if I don't like the I always know I don't like to throw that word around because to be honest, that's what we don't need some Series 65 license in order to say that we're a fiduciary. Um, but anyways, it's a
Peter and I will
it's a
never lead with our credentials. I'm never going to tell you, I'm life licensed, therefore you should listen to me. I've got this many years of experience, therefore you should listen to me. No, here are the ideas, and you be the judge, right? Plenty of people with lots of credentials don't have the right ideas. I like to say I make my money by being the little boy who points out that the emperor has no clothes. And that little boy didn't have any credentials either, right? I knew much more about the infinite banking concept than a lot of people who are securities licensed before I got any credentials. I just get the licenses that are required for me to legally do business. That's what I do. I don't stand on my credentials. I don't stand on my years of experience. Peter Nelson is not going to be waving a flag saying, "Hey, I'm a fiduciary, so you should trust me." No, he's getting the licenses he's legally required to do business. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the ideas. And by the way, the ideas that Peter and I espouse are not unique to us. These are very traditional, time honored
yeah.
ideas. The ideas, quote unquote, that your financial advisor or some of them or your typical Wall Street guy will give you are actually very new ideas and they're actually very risky and they're not time honored and they're not traditional. Okay. Just because it's
I,
conventional wisdom doesn't mean it's traditional wisdom, right? Big difference.
yeah, and I think not to go into this too much, but I think really in the early 80s, things really started to change the way we looked at things. That was also about the same time where pensions were kind of going out and the 401k was coming in. And of course, I call it the wild, wild west of Wall Street. You had leveraged buyouts all of a sudden become a big deal on Wall Street, all this crazy stuff going on. So, yeah, I mean, it's about I would say the last 40 years. And then you got into the mid 90s, all of a sudden, everything was just like going up like a rocket ship, right? So you're right, Logan. This is still new. I mean, cash
Yep.
value life insurance and the way to do it has been around for over 100 years, right?
Yep. So
So
a lot of the people you talk to, they behave as if there's only been 50 years of financial history, when in fact there have been thousands of years of financial history, and the principles of money banking, investing have not changed over that time frame, right? Now, some of the vehicles change, some historical things do change, but the principles stay the same. And by the way, up until the 1960s, your average American household had whole life insurance as a bedrock savings vehicle. They were not doing infinite banking. They were not using it in the way that we're talking about. They were using it mostly as a very safe bedrock savings vehicle. Okay, but that's important to note, that really up until the 1960s, this would not have seemed strange to your average American household. They had this, and it was the unfortunate cultural changes and some Wall Street advertising and marketing campaigns, coupled with a bull market at that time in the stock market, that led people away from the bedrock vehicle of whole life insurance to other more, let's say, risky vehicles peddled by Wall Street.
Buy term, invest the difference, all that, stuff.
Mutual funds, 401ks, all that kind of stuff, which again, yeah, we can get into that later. But let's continue. I know we're limited on time, so I want to continue with what the financial advisor is actually saying. And now we're getting to the point in the email where I actually haven't read it in advance. So I'll be winging it a little bit, but it's, again, what he says is just completely bizarre. It could have been written by a third grader as far as his understanding of whole life insurance goes. So he says, tax deferral and management doesn't provide as great a benefit at your asset/income levels on top of the estate strategy we have in place. Tax deferral and management. What is that? What is he talking about? What does that mean? Okay. Tax deferral and management, right?
I have a question. I have a question real quick that really, I just got off a Ed Slott webinar, so maybe I'm primed for this. That last part, what plan does he have for estate planning, knowing with the Secure Act and Secure 2.0? What's he talking about? Isn't a lot of this money in IRAs?
No, I think it's in a brokerage account, but there are two things I would say to that. First of all, estate strategy. So is he pretending to be an estate planning attorney now too, right? He's pretending to be an expert in everything, right? So not only is he an expert in the infinite banking concept and all forms of cash value life insurance, because remember, he confuses whole life insurance with indexed universal life, with variable universal life. He mixes them all up. And apparently he's also an expert in estate planning too, right? I don't pretend to be an expert in estate planning. I can identify the need for estate planning, and yes, we should address that as part of a comprehensive plan, of course, but I'm going to refer you to an estate planning attorney, which I am not. My question to him too would be, oh, you have an estate strategy in place. Okay. Where's the permanent life insurance policy that's part of that strategy, right?
How can you not do effective and efficient estate planning without having the one tool that's literally built for estate planning, which you just said is life insurance?
Exactly. You can't do, I'm making a bold statement here, but come on. You can't do proper estate planning without some form of permanent life insurance in place. So where is that? I'd like to see it. I was trying not to get pulled down into the weeds and other things. So I didn't question what was the estate strategy. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's him pretending to be an estate planning attorney, which he is not. And I'm sure the quote unquote strategy, again, it still boils down to you have all your money in the market. So clearly there's no real estate strategy in place, right? Clearly there's none in place. Otherwise, there would be probably a permanent life insurance policy in place and a long-term care plan in place. I mean, there'd be something, right?
Or worst case, a cash value life insurance policy with a chronic illness rider or something, at least at the very least, right?
Yep. And of course, he uses that word strategy very loosely, right? We know what his idea of a strategy is. So tax deferral and management. Okay, we're talking about the infinite banking concept. The infinite banking concept is not a tax deferral strategy. Okay, it has nothing to do with taxes. So again, he's completely missing the point. And when he says tax deferral, I mean, this is not a 401k. What does he think we're doing here? Okay. I think I know probably where he gets this misconception from, but I don't want to go into it because I don't want to confuse the audience. But this is not a tax deferral or tax management strategy of any kind. Okay, we're doing the infinite banking concept, right? So again, completely missing the point, right? At your asset and income levels. So basically, I think what he's saying is you're not a super high net worth person, so taxes aren't as big of an issue. Okay, fine, but that wasn't the point in the first place. So once again, his premises are completely wrong. Okay, Now we're getting into a little bit of the piece that I have not read yet. So let me just we'll just go into a little bit. There's a few things to talk about. So here's what he says. For a number of reasons, I still don't believe you need a whole life policy. Okay, stop there. First of all, again, we're talking about the infinite banking concept. We're not talking about a whole life policy. So he's missing the point, confusing the vehicle with the concept, right? This client is going to be spending money. He's going to be financing purchases, and he's going to be using a bank account from now until the day he dies. The only question is, who is going to profit from that banking activity? Is it going to be the client, or is it going to be Wells Fargo? That's the question. Talking about whole life misses the point. But let me again, here's this word that he's throwing out there again, need, right? I still don't believe you need a whole life policy. Well, you know what? He doesn't need a financial advisor. He doesn't need any money in the brokerage account. He doesn't need to take on market risk. Okay. No one is saying that you need any financial product, right? So when he poses it that way, it's very disingenuous, right? Nobody is saying that you need any financial product. You don't need a whole life policy, nor do I. The question is, depending on what your goals are financially and what your situation is, would you want one, right? And again, you can't talk about whole life in the abstract. What are you trying to accomplish? How does it fit into your overall financial picture, right? Because we're going to design it very differently depending on how you're going to use it. So again, it's not about need, okay? You need food, clothing, and shelter, not much else. So yeah, you don't need a whole life policy, just like you don't need a financial advisor and you don't need to put any money into a brokerage account, right? Okay. And you certainly don't need to take on market risk when you're 75 years old. Okay. All right.
Or at least, I mean, we go back to by the way, we go back to the Ernst & Young portfolio. If he wants to maximize retirement income and legacy, 30% would be cash value life insurance, 30% would be in some form of annuity, and 40% could be in investments, right? But at least then you've got the buckets diversified there. That's a true diversified portfolio there, right?
Yeah.
So if the market's down, his 60% of his portfolio is still wasn't even phased by it, right? I mean,
right.
So,
Right.
but so are you saying that like all of his assets for the most part are right now in the market and he's 75?
That is correct. Okay.
That, my friends, is what we call financial malpractice.
Thank you. Yeah. It's all at risk. And his other biggest, as we talked about, his biggest asset is his paid off house. So why is the financial advisor not brought up a reverse mortgage? How can you not talk about a reverse mortgage when your biggest asset is your paid off house, right?
And you're a AAA agent, right, Logan? Using the Don Graves line, you like to use all assets available, right?
Yeah. We talked to Don Graves about it. And another one which I brought up, you could use, as you brought up, an annuity, right?
Right.
You could take out an annuity. That's not infinite banking, but I would rather you be in an annuity that's not exposed to market risk, where you have guaranteed income that you can't outlive. Better that than having your money at risk in the market, right? So here he says. By the
way, just to mention real quick too, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say this. Right now with these higher interest rates, getting annuities right now, this is amazing right now. It truly is. I'm not making that up. If you're going to get an annuity, whether you can get a DIA, you can get a fixed indexed annuity with a guaranteed living withdrawal benefit. You don't have to turn the income on right now, but my gosh, at least get it set up. Things are just, this is the time to do it, guys.
I was thinking about this case, and one of the things he could do is he could take the money he has in the market and roll it over into an annuity. Okay. At his age, he could get better than a 10% rate just on a fixed annuity, no indexing, nothing, just a fixed annuity, right? Can your financial advisor guarantee you a 10% rate of return? No, of course not. But at 75 years old, the older you get, the better annuities get, because it's a guaranteed lifetime payout, right? If he did a survivorship annuity where he and his wife both could not outlive it with a guaranteed return of principal, he could get about 8.5%, right? Again, guaranteed, no market risk. Okay, why wouldn't you do that? That income stream would take a huge chunk out of what you need for retirement, and you can't outlive it. And there's no market risk. Okay,
Right. Going
so
back to the 30% annuities, 30% cash value life insurance, 40% in investments. And by the way, what's and I've said this before, which I think is people miss out. Take the 40% that's in the investments. You could even be more aggressive with it. If it goes down, so what? Right? Because 60% of that portfolio is guaranteed to never go down. My gosh. Right?
yep, yep. So here he says, we are big believers that life insurance is a product to meet a specific need. For example, income replacement or providing liquidity in the event you pass away. However, insurance is not an ideal investment vehicle due primarily to all the costs associated with the policy, the costs for the death benefit, and the commissions paid. Oh boy, here we go again with the scarcity mindset. So, first of all, the expenses, it's all netted out. If you look at it, it performs extremely well. So if you say it's expensive, quote unquote, there are fees associated with it. Every financial product has fees associated with it. The question
Yeah.
is, what value are you getting out of it? And the value he get here is enormous. It's tremendous. And there's no market risk. Okay. So this is the financial advisor engaging in projection, because it seems to me he wants to keep collecting his fees, right? Because as an example, Peter, you introduced me to a term, annuicide, right? If he were to do the responsible thing and tell his client, we need to annuitize your portfolio so you can not have market risk and get guaranteed income, okay, he would get a one-time commission from the sale of that annuity, but then he wouldn't get all that recurring revenue he gets for assets under management, right? And so he doesn't want to do that, right? Now, again, I don't think he's consciously thinking these things. I do think, though, that the way he's been trained is by much, much, much higher up people who do think this way, right? Where it's just, we want to keep your money for as long as possible and never give it back to you because that's how we make as much money as possible, right? So
Yeah.
we can
And I'll
claim to
just
be a
make a mention
fiduciary of our
about,
clients.
let me just make a mention about that too. Fidelity has like, well over $1 trillion of assets under management. Just so everybody knows, Fidelity also sells billions of dollars of annuities. Okay. Do they want to probably be selling annuities? Probably not, if I'd have to guess. But at the same time, they're smart enough to know that people want annuities and see the value in them. So once again, this guy, he's really shooting himself in the foot if you think about it, because if he would actually be doing the proper planning, nobody would be messing with that. That client would not be interested in talking to anyone else because, man, my advisor handles my investments. He knows how he's handling my estate planning with life insurance. Maybe not all of it, estate planning with life insurance, but part of it. I have a guaranteed paycheck through my annuity, but he's not. He's just this the way
Right,
I was taught in 2002 at Wydell and Reed.
right.
No, you just put
I,
it.
I talked to an extremely high producing infinite banking guy, and he always uses the team approach. He does the opposite of what this financial advisor does. He's always bringing in other financial professionals so he can get all the bases covered, and he acts in his client's best interest that way. And he may make less per client, but he's going to make way more over the long run because he's actually really helping them. They're seeing how it's moving the needle, right? It's not just put your money in the market and pray for the best, right? And I try to do the same thing. I'm trying to partner with other financial professionals. Like I mentioned, the reverse mortgage, I brought in Don Graves, right? I'm not going to make a dime from the reverse mortgage, but I am going to benefit indirectly, right? Because that's going to free up a lot more liquidity than he can use. And after I've added value like that, he's probably going to come to me and ask me, what he should do with all this liquidity that we just freed up. And oh, by the way, didn't take on market risk or pay any taxes, right?
Yeah.
So
One of these days we'll do one of these and we'll get into the whole reverse mortgage thing more because it really is it's not for everybody, but it's for more people than who's actually taking advantage of it. So we'll leave it at that.
yeah, yeah. So we are big believers that life insurance is a product to meet a specific need. No, I don't know what he's talking about there. Okay.
And And what he should have said right there is, yeah, we actually need this because we're going to do some estate planning, supposedly, right?
Yeah, well, it's
So
funny, you're right, because he mentions income replacement or providing liquidity in the event you pass away, right? He's telling you you don't need a whole life policy. And then he mentions two reasons that seem pretty relevant to this particular guy, right? He earns the income, his wife doesn't, right? So if he passes away tomorrow, wouldn't it be good for her to get a death benefit to replace his income, right? And provide liquidity? Like, wouldn't that be a good thing to have, right?
yeah.
But of course, the way he couches it's do you need at? Well, strictly speaking, you don't need any financial product. But again, no. If you're talking about just straight up term life insurance, okay, maybe. Even then, I would say there's more to it than that. But it's like, no, life insurance is not a single use product to meet a single specific need, especially when you're talking about whole life. We took care of long term care. He didn't mention that, right? This has long term care protection. Okay. It's taking care of liquidity because of the cash value growth. It's de risking you from the market. It's providing that death benefit protection, right? It would be part of a proper estate strategy, right? There's so many different things that
And
it does.
here's the one too that we've talked about this before that is so crucial right now. How about having a buffered asset? Right? My gosh. I mean, Dr. Wade Pfau, I have his book. I think it's right behind this picture here. But he literally talks about that a buffered asset will make a portfolio last so much longer. I mean, Tom Hegna has talked about it. The example I like to share, the guy made 10.1% throughout retirement, and he ran out of money after 22 years. Why? Because the sequence of returns tore him up, right?
Yeah.
I
And
don't know why a guy like this would not want his client to have a buffered asset because it makes him look more brilliant, right?
it's just fear. It's just him afraid of losing his commission. It's just fear. Instead of having the abundance mindset where we're all sharing ideas and mutually helping each other, right? So, but I agree. Yeah. Now I know we're probably out of time, so I'm not going to go into this, but we're about to get into the
Let's
part
go
that,
into one more here.
well, this one's really long, so we won't be able to get into it. But this is where
Okay,
he
then we'll
mocks.
stop it.
Well, hold on. I just want to say what he does. We'll get into it next time, so I can leave people with a cliffhanger because this is where he mocks my idea. It's not my idea of, hey, maybe you should remove some risk from the equation. You're 75 years old and you have all your eggs basically in one basket. That's all at risk in the market. Maybe you should remove some of that risk. I don't think you need to be securities licensed to see why that might be a good idea. And he's about to go into this lengthy paragraph where he basically mocks my whole idea that we might want to take some risk off the table, right? And this kind of does start to make me angry, where it's like, dude, what you're doing, it's malpractice. This is absolutely malpractice.
No. And he better hope that Michael Burry is wrong. The big short investor. He's got like over $1 trillion of options betting against I believe the S&P 500, the SPY, and NASDAQ QQQ right now. And so if Michael Burry is right, unfortunately, this client is going to potentially lose a lot of money. And at 75, that's probably not good, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have time to wait for it to recover. He doesn't have that time. No.
Especially by the way, here's another thing too. Ladies and gentlemen, with these high interest rates, look at what money market accounts are even making, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and right now the market just ran back up. Here's the interesting thing. Now, this guy, I'm guessing, I could be wrong, Logan, and we'll wrap up with this. I'm guessing that this guy lost a bunch of money in 2022. Now the advisor left the money in, so now maybe it got back to break even, maybe it didn't. So, I mean, now would be the time really to put it into some fixed interest. I mean, gosh, we got annuities, like you said, they're paying, de-risk the whole thing. But it sounds like instead of that, it's what do I always talk about? Buy and hold, higher the risk, higher the reward. And my favorite, it's just a paper loss, right?
Buy and hope. Buy and hope. And hope is not a strategy. And
But
another
someone did
element we're not getting into here is just the element of control. Who has control? We talk about this with infinite banking. Who is controlling the banking function in your life? That's the question. Okay. But the same thing is true here. When you give your money over to your financial advisor, who has control? Who has control? Whereas we're talking about putting your money into, say, cash value life insurance and annuities where you have control and the insurance company is guaranteeing you something. You have control, you have contractual rights, right? So if you were to do the thing of, hey, you can just borrow against your investment portfolio. Well, who has control now? Whatever bank, first of all, you got to qualify, you check your credit score, right? Whatever bank gave you that line of credit, they're in control. They dictate the terms, and now they can liquidate your portfolio if you don't meet the terms of those repayments, right? When you borrow against your whole life policy, who's in control? You are. There are no repayment terms. You decide if, how, and when you want to pay that loan back. You are in control and you have guarantees, right? So that's a whole nother theme that we could spend a lot of time talking on, but you want to put your capital in places where you have control, not somebody else, especially not these third-party financial institutions that probably don't have your best interest at heart. And they're probably not sitting down trying to think about, hey, how can we make Peter and Logan wealthy? They're probably more thinking about how can they increase the profitability of their own company, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just important to keep that in mind.
All right. All right. Great. So we got part 4 coming up next week, right?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for your time, Peter. We're about to get into the part that should make people a little bit angry.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great one. God bless. Godspeed.
Thank you, Peter.